Breaking news from Malawi. Tonight, the nation watches, whispers, and wonders as former President Dr. Lazarus Chakwera was rushed to hospital after what witnesses describe as an emotional collapse moments after the final election results landed like a thunderclap. This video will unpack the who, what, why, and what next, the immediate health situation, the exact vote numbers, the mood in the streets, and what this upheaval could mean for Malawi and the wider continent. We'll stay sharp, we'll stay fair, and we'll keep the tone Malawian, a mix of sober respect and direct questions the people deserve. Stay with us as we move, fast but careful, through 10 essential facts you need to know about this unfolding story. The moment that stopped Malawi. According to witnesses inside the counting center, the room went silent when the final tallies were posted. Cameras captured Dr. Lazarus Chakwera losing his and aides moved quickly, and the private hospital where Chakwera was taken began receiving reporters' calls. Close aides asked for calm, stressing the need to respect patient privacy even as the country demanded answers. As the footage ricocheted across WhatsApp groups and Twitter threads, citizens traded worry with analysis. Was the shock a health episode or a symbol of something deeper? In a nation still raw from economic strain and civic impatience, that one image of a leader in trouble landed with heavy meaning, human, political, and historical all at once. Transition. But that single scene was only the opening act. Keep watching to understand why. Why the vote numbers mattered. The Electoral Commission's official counts gave Peter Mutharika a decisive margin, leaving the outgoing president far behind in a result that stunned some and validated others. For many observers, the numbers were not simply arithmetic. They were a verdict on 5 years of governance under Chakwera, in a country reeling from inflation, supply shortages, and fiscal pressure. The ballots told a story of high turnout and a clearer mandate than some expected. For voters, the tallies became shorthand for a deeply held desire for change. The scale of the margin, widely reported across major outlets, underscored not just a political shift, but also a public recalibration of what leadership should deliver: stability, price relief, and tangible improvements. Whether that wish list is reasonable in the short term is a separate debate. What the numbers made clear is that emotion and economics combined to push voters toward an experienced hand. Analysts flagged that the electorate weighed immediate material conditions heavily, and many citizens interpreted the result as a repudiation of promises unfulfilled. That kind of electoral message tends to sharpen opposition voices, reorder alliances, and force quick policy thinking from those who now carry the mandate. Transition. Numbers matter. Next, we break down exactly what those vote totals say. The health bulletin. What officials said. In the hours after the collapse, official statements were cautious and compact. Chakwera was receiving care, his condition monitored, and no dramatic medical prognosis was being publicly issued. That careful framing is standard. Privacy laws, family wishes, and the natural desire to avoid panic keep hospitals and medical teams tight-lipped. But in a political moment like this, being monitored becomes headline material. Every update, or lack of one, fuels speculation. Aides relayed to local journalists that blood pressure and emotional shock were immediate concerns, while medical staff asked for space to run tests and stabilize him before offering fuller explanations. Meanwhile, party officials balanced empathy with political calm, urging supporters to pray and to avoid inflammatory language. That mix of medical discretion and political messaging is textbook crisis management.
Malawi's president, Lazarus Chakwera, cast his vote in the country's general elections in his hometown.
Left by limited detail. For a nation watching, facts and feelings pushed against one another. Citizens pressed for transparency, the medical team insisted on patience, and the media worked to verify each scrap of official information before amplifying. The result was a slow, careful release of facts that kept the public tense, but not panicked. Transition. Health updates are scarce. Here's what officials are actually telling us.
Why Chakwera's defeat is politically significant. Chakwera arrived in office with a moral brand, the pastor turned president who promised accountability and reform. Over 5 years, however, many voters judged the performance through the narrow, honest lens of their daily lives. Rising food bills.
Malawi has faced economic stagnation since the former pastor was elected in 2020, with a devastating cyclone and a regional drought wiping out crops and worsening hardship.
Their political mantle can quickly fray. Losing by a large margin is a blunt measure of that frustration. It signals that voters prioritize immediate economic relief over sustained rhetorical appeal. In electoral politics, credibility is not only about promises, but about delivering tangible relief. Chakwera's trajectory reveals a broader pattern seen elsewhere. High hopes at the start of a mandate can generate correspondingly high disappointment when systems and supplies don't follow. For opposition voices, the margin becomes proof that a change in approach was necessary. For centrists, it becomes a call to reevaluate which institutions are failing and which reforms might actually work. The political lesson is clear. Legitimacy must be continually earned, and popular faith can evaporate once the ledger of daily life shows more debits than credits. This loss isn't a one-line headline, it rewrites political expectations. Next up, why? The comeback candidate, who is Peter Mutharika? Peter Mutharika is a seasoned political actor whose return to power has been framed as both a comeback and a practical corrective by supporters who cite his experience in governance. At 85, his age prompted immediate questions about energy and generational representation. Yet his campaign leaned into promises to stabilize the economy, fight corruption, and restore investor confidence. Supporters pointed to his past executive experience and to technocrats he intends to bring back into the fold. Critics, however, fear a return to the old guard style and the hazards of over-reliance on familiar personalities rather than systemic reform. The reality is complicated. Experienced leadership can help navigate crises, but a leader's ability to inspire and connect with youth and entrepreneurs matters almost as much as resume facts. Mutharika's victory therefore forces an awkward dual test. Can he use experience to deliver fast, meaningful results, and can he convince a young, restless electorate that his era will make space for their aspirations? And next months will answer whether the comeback is durable or merely a pause between cycles. So who is the man now returning to power? The background matters. The mood on Malawi's streets. From Lilongwe's avenues to Blantyre's markets, the public reaction was anything but uniform. Where victory supporters spilled into streets with drums and dancing, Chakwera loyalists gathered in prayer circles, whispering pleas for recovery and reflection. Traders and daily wage workers reported a cautious calm. Life, after all, continues around headlines. Market vendors asked about supply chains and inflation more than personalities. And university students voiced frustration about jobs and the future. Public servants expressed relief that the transition was peaceful, but also worry about the short-term volatility that often follows a major political upset. The emotional mix, celebration, anxiety, and resignation, is emblematic of a country that remains devoted to civic processes but impatient for results. In neighborhoods where voters had long suffered shortages, the new administration's promise of quick fixes created guarded hope. In others, where Chakwera's rhetoric resonated, there was a sense of personal loss. This complex street-level picture matters because national mood drives early policy tolerance and sets the political tempo for the incoming leadership. The streets tell a different story. Stay tuned for the human angle.
Regional and
As
international
Mutharika
reactions.
takes an early lead,
The world watched
President
Malawi's vote
Chakwera's
and its
party
immediate
has
fallout
cried
with
foul.
interest.
The
Regional
ruling party
neighbors
has
urged
claimed that it
calm
had
and
evidence
constitutional
of
respect,
rigging in the
and several
elections,
international
including
organizations
ballot
highlighted the
stuffing.
importance of a peaceful
The
transition
Malawi
and
Congress
robust
Party blamed alleged
institutions.
rigging
Global
for the
media
major
framed
loss
the result
indicated
within
in the
broader
early
continental
results.
trends, where
Chakwera's
democratic
party
processes
filed a complaint
sometimes
with the Election
reaffirm
Commission.
legitimacy,
Following
and
this,
where unmet
police arrested
socioeconomic
8
demands
data
can
entry
swiftly
staff.
reshape
The
political
two rivals,
fortunes.
Chakwera and
Diplomatic
Mutharika,
channels
faced
publicly
off in
called for respect
2019.
for electoral
Though the
outcomes,
then
and private
incumbent
briefings
Mutharika
discussed
won
the
the
economic
elections, his victory
implications
was
for
nullified
aid,
because of
trade, and foreign
irregularities,
investment.
including the use
Analysts
of
at regional
correction
think
fluid
tanks
on
pointed
result
out that an
sheets.
orderly handover,
Chakwera won the
even in the
historic
shadow of a
rerun
leader's
in
health scare,
2020.
strengthens confidence in
Now,
the
since
country's
President
governance
Chakwera came to
frameworks.
power,
International
cyclone
partners
footage from
signaled
around
readiness to
2023
engage with the
and an
new
El
administration, but
Niño-inspired
underscored
drought
a
in
familiar
2024
caveat. Political
wiped out
rhetoric
crops
must
and
be
worsened
paired with
hardships in the
credible
country.
policy commitments to unlock
During his
financial and
presidencies
technical
from
support.
2014 to
All in all,
2020,
the foreign
Mutharika
response
was
combined
credited with
concern for a leader's
improving
health with
infrastructure and
practical
lowering
attention to how the
inflation.
election might
But
alter
he was
Malawi's
also
external
accused of appointing
relationships
his friends
and
and
internal
family
reform
to positions of
trajectory.
authority.
The world is
Mutharika
watching.
denied
Here's
the
how regional
allegations.
players responded.
Now,
The
when
youth
Chakwera
question:
came to power
can
in
the new
2020,
government deliver?
he pledged to clean
Malawi's
up graft.
population skews
But
young,
his handling
and
of
no
cases,
incoming
too, has
administration
been
can ignore that
criticised
demographic
as
force.
selective and slow.
Young voters expect
And now
digital
the two
access,
rivals have
education
yet
that
again
leads
come
to
face to
work,
face.
and policies
The
that
election
encourage
results are expected
entrepreneurship
to be
rather
out
than
by the
patronage.
24th of
For many, the
September.
election signaled impatience. Experience matters, but not at the cost of stifling fresh innovation. The new government will be judged quickly on job creation programs, access to credit for small businesses, internet and tech policy improvements, and practical steps to stabilize prices and supply. If early policy signals are vague or slow, youth disappointment could harden into broader disillusionment. Conversely, credible short-term steps, targeted subsidies, clear job skills programs, rapid improvements in service delivery could buy political goodwill and momentum for deeper reforms. This is not theoretical. Youth sentiment translates into market activity, protest potential, and long-term civic engagement. For Mutharika and his team, delivering visible wins for young Malawians will be as much about optics as about substance, and they'll only have a small window to show progress. Young voices will decide whether promises stick. What they expect next matters. Institutions under test, Election Commission and media. This election and its aftermath placed Malawi's institutions under scrutiny, from the Electoral Commission to the press and civil society. Observers noted an increase in voter turnout and demanded transparency in counting and reporting. The media worked overtime to verify images and statements, trying to separate sensational social clips from verified eyewitness reports. Civil society organizations monitored both the vote and the transition, pressing for accountability where irregularities were alleged and for clarity where confusion reigned. The relative calm of the transition suggests institutional resilience, but resilience is brittle if not maintained. Election bodies must ensure robust audits, timely disclosure of counts, and accessible answers to legitimate concerns. The media must continue rigorous verification to avoid amplifying rumors about health or legal challenges. In short, institutions delivered a functioning process this time, but the episode underscores the continual need to invest in institutional capacity so that moments like a leader's hospitalization do not morph into institutional crises.